Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be looking over the Gallipoli campaign. These are the three contents. So this video is going to be quite short because I'm just going to cover going over the Gallipoli campaign. So the content, first of all, why it started, the timeline, and why it failed. Okay, so it failed for the Allied. Okay, so we're talking as in the Allied point of view or the Allied opinion. So here's a picture of the Gallipoli Peninsula. Okay, so it was a steep side. I'm going to talk about how this terrain is going to contribute to the Allied defeat, okay, or the Turks' victory in the Gallipoli campaign. So why it started? Okay, so there were four main reasons. So first of all, the Allies wanted to get control of the Dardanelles Strait and attack Constantinople, which was the Ottoman Empire capital back then, to cause the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Okay, so the European countries really admired the Ottoman Empire, and they wish, they had lands from it. So essentially, the Allied wanted land from the Ottoman Empire, so it wanted to defeat it. Okay. So second of all, it wanted to open a supply route via the Black Sea through the Dardanelles Strait, okay, to Russia for foods and weapon shortages. Because in Russia, there were like people were starving. There was not enough food. There was not enough weapons, because its armies were only for because made of its army was made of workers and peasants, and they didn't have enough weapons. They didn't have enough ammunitions, and since the worker left the factories, they're not going to be people who make foods. So there were food and weapon shortages in Russia. So essentially, it could not fight against Germany well prepared. Okay, it could not fight a good battle against Germany. So the Allies were trying to give Russia, okay, supply Russia with weapons and food. So it also wanted to shorten the war, okay, by taking down Germany's ally, because less enemies means less time to defeat them, or the war time is less. Okay, and the fourth objective was to relieve pressure on the Western Front. So by forcing Germany to divert troops to help the Ottomans. So basically, it thought that if it launched a huge and massive attack on the Western Front, on the Gallipoli Peninsula, the Ottomans could not defend against it, and it forced Germany to divert troops there and basically relieve the pressure off the Western Front. So this is the timeline. So on February 1915, so 23 Allied ships led by Sir John de Robeck attacked the Dardanelles Strait. So they were going through a naval battle. Okay. And prior to that, there are like a few months early in January 1915, which I'm not going to include here because it's not really important. The Allied did bombard, okay, did bombard the Turks' defense with airplanes, and left. And then February 1915 is when the first attack happened. So this was the naval attack. Okay, the British minesweeper on March 1915. Yeah, the British minesweeper had cleared most of the Turks' mines, but three Allied ships got sunk by stray mines, and three were badly damaged. So Sir Robert called off the attack, but what he didn't know was that the Turks were down to their last row of mines, which means that after this, basically the Allied ships, the Allied fleet, would just continue on without some without the mines stopping them. So yeah, basically they can just keep continuing, and then they would meet no resistance at all, and which would have been a decisive thing to happen. And it probably could have probably changed the outcome, the result of the Gallipoli campaign. Okay, so in April 1915, this is when the troops, okay, the ground troops would actually start landing on the Cove. Okay, so the Anzac Cove. So it was led by General Sir Ian Hamilton and 39,000 Anzac troops, which was Anzac stand for Australian New Zealand Army Corps. Okay, landed on the Anzac Cove. So they were met by strong resistance on the western beaches, and troops were scattered due to strong currents. Okay, so there were strong currents. They brought different ships that were scattered throughout the entire Anzac Cove. They gained little ground and had to dig in. Okay, I'm missing a few words here, but they had to dig in for protection, and I'm going to show you a picture of that. So we're going to come back here. So basically, the land here, that was scattered throughout the entire peninsula, the Cove, okay, and then they had to dig in under the hillsides. Basically, they had to dig under here because they would be under constant fire from the Ottomans' machine guns on top of these hillsides. In the trenches, they would be just firing down. So they were literally raining bullets, okay, raining artilleries, raining bullets down on the Allies. So the ships would arrive here, the troops would got off, but that would be met by the machine guns shooting down at the Allied troops, and there were heavy, heavy casualties, okay. So going back to the timeline, and yeah, they had little ground. They had gained little ground and had to dig in, and there were a lot of casualties. And in May 1915, there were a large attack from the Turkish, with heavy casualties on both sides. Okay, which I don't know, probably did give Allied a few advantage, like a little bit, because the Turks lost more men. But after that, nothing really changed. On August 1915, okay, so a big 3 month break. So essentially, in this time, they were just fighting against each other, attrition warfare, basically, with no decisive major battles or with no big decisions made by the commanders on both sides. Okay, so on August 1915, this was when the Chunuk Bear push was launched. Okay, so essentially, the Allied soldiers didn't have enough equipment, and 6 out of 8 artillery guns were broken down, which mean there were not enough guns to support the push. But I don't know, they still wanted the Chinook Bear push anyway, so it was launched, and as you already know, it failed. Okay, humiliatedly. In August 1915, also on the same month. Okay, so a few days apart, Suvla Bay. Okay, plan of the Suvla Bay push was led by General Stopford to reinforce and support a simultaneous attack at Sari Bear, okay, which again failed. So Sari Bear, Suvla Bay, and the Chinook Bear push, all three failed. Okay, which was super bad for the Allied side. On November 1915, finally, okay, finally the Allies saw that they couldn't keep on losing men like this. They couldn't just suffer all these loss without any major, advantage or any major outcomes that they would favor in their position. So they say, okay, we're going to call this off. And the Gallipoli campaign was called off on November 1915, and by December 1915, the final evacuations were on the way. And the heavy losses. Okay, there were heavy casualties, 500,000 lost on both sides over the course of around a few months. Okay, so from February to December, around 10 months, 500,000 troops. That's a huge amount. Okay, so why it failed? So there were 7 main reasons why it failed. Okay, so first of all, the troops were inexperienced and the leaders were incompetent. Okay, so the troops basically face war in the first time of their life. The Anzac troops were fresh men. Okay, they would just train for a few months in Egypt before shipping to the Ottoman empires to fight. So they were inexperienced. They didn't know a lot about what to do, and the leaders too. They were incompetent. Okay, they didn't like that. They had plans, but they didn't carry it out well enough, and they didn't see through a lot of things, and basically they didn't really care if the men died or not. Okay, some said they were, you know, didn't care about the loss of men. They said, "Oh, we had plenty of men, so let's keep pushing." Okay, so they were also underprepared, and because the artillery guns, okay, was broken down, was not ready. Okay, and then lots of other things like supply was not enough. Okay, which all lead to the lack of water. Okay, so unsanitary conditions, which caused health problems. Okay, was one of the main reasons why it failed, because they were disgusting. Okay, dead bodies, flies swarming everywhere, with dysentery, and there was a dysentery epidemic, and it killed a lot of people. So yeah, and lack of water, as I said. So the water supply was, you know, anchored on the beach, anchored on the coast, but then when the Allied tried to push, they were too far away from this water supply, so they essentially had no water. Okay, so the early bombing in January 1915 let the Turks know, okay, this was stupid from the Allied side. They were basically what they did was saying, "Hey, we're going to attack you. We're going to invade your home. You better straighten up your defense. You better man's up." So the Turks they gave the Turks a heads up, and the Turks know what exactly they were going to do. They need to do, and they basically covered most of their flaws, okay, the flaws in their defenses, and the Allied had a really hard time cracking through, and they even failed. Okay, so the difficult terrain, I showed you guys earlier how the terrain, okay, here you go again, it was too steep, okay, it was really hard to climb up, and then they had little to no ground. As you can see here, this is water right here. That's not very wide. That's around 5 meters at most, maybe a bit more, but 5 meters. Okay, so there were like thousands, 10,000 troops. Okay, tens of thousands of troops, and they will only have 5 meters of land. Okay, stretching along, stretching across the entire cove, which yeah, which were little ground for them to have. They had little ground, and with an addition rain of bullets from the Ottomans' machine guns, made the thing even worse. And so yeah, strong Turks resistance were basically the machine guns shooting down. They had really strategic trenches, okay, which minimalized the loss on the Ottoman Empire, on the Gallipoli campaign, okay, on the first day of landing and the first few days of landing on April. Yeah, so thank you for watching today, and I'll see you